Hello and welcome back to the Import-Export Hub channel, everybody. Bogdan here, your biased host for the next couple of minutes. Thanks for joining me. I hope you're all doing great. And guys, without begging you, as always, to hit those small vanity buttons below this video, allow me to cover Poland's export dynamics for the 2019-2023 timeframe. More precisely, I will show you Poland's top 20 headings who had the largest absolute changes in 2023 relative to the previous year, both positive and negative, while towards the end of the video I'll cover Poland's top 20 headings that had the smallest coefficient of variation, again for the same time frame, basically a ratio between the standard deviation and the mean, considering the exported values, so not volumes, which should tell us in what sectors does Poland has a competitive advantage, but more on this later. So guys, first things first, I will start with Poland's top 20 headings that had the largest absolute positive changes in 2023. And as we can see here, heading 8507 had the largest absolute positive change. I'm talking about electric accumulators. And we see a $3.4 billion change, bringing thus the overall export figure for 2023 to almost $13 billion, and a really impressive compound annual growth rate for the last 5 years, around 36%. On the second spot, we see parts and accessories for tractors and motor vehicles for the transport of 10 or more persons, heading 8708, who had an year-on-year change of $2.9 billion and some $18 billion overall exports, which is the largest amount in this top 20 list. And let's say completing the podium, we have another heading from chapter 87. This time we're talking about vehicles for the transport of goods, mostly vans, if you ask me, with an absolute positive change of $2.3 billion and a $6.8 billion overall export figure for 2023. And the list goes on with, I don't know, radar apparatus and radio navigational aid with a year-on-year change of 734, give or take $1 million positive change. Turbojets follows, then we see heading 1905, so bread, pastry, cakes and biscuits with a year-on-year change of $622 million. And a really impressive compound annual growth rate for the last 5 years, around 18.5%. We see wheat and meslim heading 1001. Orthopedic appliances follows with a $560 million change. Heading 9306 is also here with a year-on-year change of $481 million, and I guess you know why this happened. Then we see an interesting heading 3304, so beauty or makeup preparations with a nearly absolute positive change of $440 million, which is also coupled with a nice compound annual growth rate of some 9%. And towards the end of this list, we see, I don't know, powered aircraft heading 8802. Chocolate follows with an yearly change of almost $345 million. And on the 20th spot, we see heading 8409 with a figure around $344.7 million and a compound annual growth rate for the last 5 years around 5%. So guys, what insights could I give you by looking at these headings? First, we have to admit that the auto industry in Poland is pushing forward Poland's exports. There are a lot of manufacturers with assembly plants in Poland. Amongst them, Iveco and Fiat. We see 2 subclusters under the umbrella of Chapter 87. Both passenger and commercial vehicles, and even though we have only 3 headings in this top 20 list, They make up for almost $32.5 billion cumulatively in terms of exports for 2023. Chapter 84 is directly connected to Chapter 87, and we see some, four headings in this top 20 list, contributing with some $12.3 billion, while Chapter 85 is present with two headings and a slightly bigger figure cumulatively, while the rest of the chapters have just one heading with figures around $2 billion. Another thing that I want to point out is the small share of commodity-related headings. In fact, we have just one heading. I'm talking about wheat and maislin, which is a good thing, meaning that the manufacturing sector in Poland is very important, and I like to see that other clusters are emerging as export performers other than the automotive sector. And I'm talking about two clusters in particular. The first one is the bread, pastry, cakes and biscuits, and the second one is the beauty or makeup preparations, both with impressive compound annual growth rates for the last 5 years, and a good potential for growth, not at the same rate, but still showing some positive change. So overall, I can say that the Polish exports are looking quite good. My guess is that manufacturing in Poland, along with other Central and Eastern European countries, will grow even more in nearshoring or friendshoring strategy. I've said it since 2021. As the current long trade frictions, like, I don't know, high freight rates, European Union tension with China, and most probably with the United States next year. So all this lack of stability and predictability will make from these countries manufacturing and export platforms for Europe, reorganizing, if you want, and reshaping, of course, supply chains. And if they know how to play it, all these countries could benefit from this nearshoring slash friendshoring strategy. And the same goes true for, I don't know, Turkey, Morocco, Tunisia, and Egypt. All these countries will become more and more important and integrated in the European supply chains. And I dare to say that the US ones as well. Anyways, guys, enough with my free insights. So let's move to Poland's largest absolute negative changes for 2023. And the largest one was registered in relation with heading 8528, who in 2023 saw a contraction of $1.7 billion from $7.3 billion overall exports in 2022 to $5.5 billion in the 2023, but still showing an impressive 5.9% compound annual growth rates. On the second spot, we see heading 8504, so electrical transformers and static converters, with a $1.2 billion contraction, while on the third spot we see heading 8471, so automatic data processing machines, PCs, servers, and laptops mostly, with a contraction similar to the previous heading. And I don't know, the list goes on with coke or semi-coke of coal, electrical energy follows. Then we see heading 8517, smartphones basically, with a contraction of $369 million. Ouch. Packing cases and boxes follows. And towards the end of the list, we see, I don't know, bars and rods of iron or non-alloy steel. Newspapers, journals, and periodicals is on the 19th spot with a contraction of $250 million, and the top 20 list ends with heading 8412, so engines and motors, who had a contraction of almost $247 million. So again, guys, what can I tell you when looking at these headings and their respective numbers? Well, first of all, we have a couple of commodity-related headings, mostly related to coal, biodiesel, and iron and steel, where volatility is inherent, let's face it. And secondly, I want to point out two headings where we will see a regression to the mean and a reduction in activity. The regression to the mean is related to heading 4415, as the e-commerce boom that happened during the pandemic is fading, and so does the requirements for packaging. While in what concerns the activity contraction, I am referring to heading 4902, newspapers, journals, and periodicals, as let's face it, guys, the request for printed journals is diminishing and online is taking over. Otherwise, I can say I see headings with some structural shifts. So even though we have a couple of negative compound annual growth rates here, the figures are not necessarily worrying. So with this said, guys, I'll now move to my last sheet, in which I will show you Poland's top 20 headings with the lowest coefficient of variation. A starting point in determining the most competitive sectors in Poland's exports, and the smallest coefficient of variation for the last 5 years was registered in relation with heading 9505. So I'm talking about festival, carnival, or other entertainment articles with a coefficient of variation of 0.0333 and an overall export value for 2023 around $108 million. Meat of swine, fresh, chilled, or frozen follows with some $891 million overall exports, and a coefficient of variation of 0.0365, while on the third spot we have worn clothing and clothing accessories, so heading 6309 with a coefficient of variation of 0.0371 and an overall export figure of $205 million, a slight increase from the previous year. And I don't know, the list goes on with tea, whether or not flavored, so heading 0902. Women's or girls' blouses is also present. Then we have bicycles and other cycles. Vegetables provisionally preserved is also on this list. While towards the end of the list we see, I don't know, heading 2006, so vegetables, fruits, nuts preserved by sugar. Lid plates and sheets is on the 19th spot, and closing this top 20 list is heading 0305. So fish, dried, salted, or in brine with a coefficient of variation of 0.0663 and an impressive overall export value of $1.1 billion for 2023. And again, guys, quickly looking at these headings and their figures, we see 4 small clusters relating to the meat industry, miscellaneous manufactured articles, electrical machinery is the third one, and then the vegetables sector. All 4 with 2 headings each, while the rest of the chapters have 1 heading with chapters 80 through 82, yes, and 3 as exponents, if you want, of export performance, at least from a value point of view, with the fishing sector having the largest exported amount in 2023 after chapter 96. Okay, the exported values are not going through the roof for 2023 for these 20 headings, but we still see impressive figures for most of them. As for the compound annual growth rates, even though we see quite a lot of negative changes, the figures are not at all worrying. So again, nothing to comment in this respect. And with this being said, guys, that's it for this episode. I hope you've liked it. Thank me by hitting those small vanity buttons below this video. And as usual, until next time, keep your business safe. Thanks.